What would you invent if you had a team that could bring it to life and make it happen? Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan, and with me here is Konel, and Konel's my hero because in my heart, I'm a tinkerbutt, and he is the ultimate tinkerbutt. He's doing cool stuff. And so, Konel, talk to us a little bit. Tell us where you've come from and what led you to this path of building cool stuff.
I'm just a country kid at heart. I grew up in Eastern Oregon and Idaho, and people ask me, well, do you have an engineering background or whatever? No, when I was a senior in high school, my sister was in the Teton Dam flood. And I'm the one that got the phone call, and she said, hey, the dam just broke. We've got about, they didn't know how much time they had at that point. We learned later it was about 15 minutes to get out. When they knew the dam broke, to actually, so my brother-in-law, he's taken all the, animals to higher ground, etc. And she is trying to get 5 little kids all ready and out the door. And she said, I forgot formula and I forgot diapers. She says, you just don't think in an emergency. So that was in the back of my mind. Several years later, I had an opportunity to tour down what happened in Louisiana and the big flood there. And I was talking to 2 police officers, and they told me the devastation of what took place. And so I saw all the aftermath of Katrina, and it was not good. So all of those things were on my mind when I went to a mountain man rendezvous, and I saw an old man burning a rock. I thought, what the heck?
Interesting.
Okay, so I bought some of the rocks to show my scouts that I could burn a rock, right? Then I took them out a couple of months later, and I go to burn them, and they didn't burn. Oh, whatever. So then I saw this old man about a year later, and I said, hey, you're that horse's rear end that sold me those rocks that didn't burn. So we laughed for a minute, but he said, let me show you what I'm doing now. So he kind of had the idea, but he was using some kind of nasty stuff. And so this was I was looking for a fuel. Generally, an invention starts from when there's a problem. So I was looking, I've always been told to have, food on hand for preparedness, but also fuel. Well, I didn't know how to store fuel. In Idaho and Oregon, we just had big barrels of diesel, and I always thought I could have a fire or whatever. So I was looking for a fuel that I could store safely and then use to cook food or to build a fire or whatever. My partner, he was kind of an outdoors dude and always a big hunter, and so he was looking for a fire starter that would work in any condition. So I said, hey, are you interested in developing something? And so it took us about 9 months playing with it every day during the week and trying to figure out, first time you throw a match, whoo, that's not what we want. And
No.
Next time it doesn't light at all. So it took us about 9 months trying to figure it out, and to what we have now is InstaFire. So we went through that process, went on Shark Tank, had that opportunity to do that. So I got to know a lot of really incredible people. And so that's kind of what has led me to some of these opportunities to develop.
And we've got a few of these here before us right now.
Yep.
So maybe talk about the evolution of what came next, or what the outcome of this was and how it shaped, okay, now where do we go and what do we do, and how do you get these ideas?
Yeah, so with this, now I can use the core to have different products. So now I can have a fire starter, I have a charcoal lighter. We wanted to be able to light charcoal without lighter fluid. So I took this as the core, and then we come up with a pouch. This particular one is not it, but we come up with a pouch, a single-use pouch that was lightable. So I could light it, which would then light the InstaFire that then would light the charcoal without lighter fluid. So that became next. So it became kind of all things fire for me, just because that was, you know, how it started. And then it went into stoves and oven. This is an interesting one. This is our Vesta. So back in 2021, remember Houston, when they had their hurricane came through and wiped out a lot of stuff, and then they went into an area where they had the power grid went down. Millions of homes without heat or without power, and then they had ice storms come through, and so they were freezing. And the owner turned to me and he says, "Konel, figure out a way to heat those homes without electricity." Okay, yeah, right. So again, it was a problem that I'm trying to figure out. So me, I don't have a ton of ideas, but if I have a problem to solve, then I like to put people around me that are smarter than me, because I know the result of what I want. And that's kind of what we've done. So I met an engineer. He's over in Scotland, and he's figured out a way to turn fire into electricity. So I go, okay, well, how do we use that technology? So anyway, this is just the original prototype. You can see, just throwing sheet metal together, and we said, okay, well, what fuel can we use? And actually, it's interesting enough that you guys gave me the idea to use canned heat. I was watching one of your videos, and it said, hey, this is canned heat is safe to use indoors. And so I go, dang, there's a great thing for you guys, right? So I thought, okay, if I can have something safe to burn indoors, then how do I capture that heat? So a friend and I got together and we thought, okay, well, do we build a radiator, or do we, you know, all of these just ideas.
The whole brainstorming.
Yeah. And,
you know, how do we make this happen?
You know, do I heat up a rock, or do I, you know, all of these kind of weird things. So we just come up with several different things until we come up with the original Vesta. So we just took and we bent, we're trying to capture as much heat as possible. So we just took it and made a serpentine piece of aluminum. So now I have the canned heat underneath to heat those aluminum fins, right?
Okay.
So then I thought, okay, well, now this was getting really hot, but how do I get the heat out into a room?
Yeah, yeah.
So I took just a regular battery-powered fan, and I put that behind it, and I took it all excited, hey, it works, and I showed it to the owner, and he goes, no, people aren't in an emergency are probably not going to have a lot of batteries. Figure out a way to create, you know, this volume of heat going out to the room without batteries. So, okay, so then that's when I remembered knowing a guy that could turn fire into electricity. So I contacted him. He had just finished a huge project, taking a nuclear power plant, taking the excess heat off of that and powering a small city. So I thought, well, can you dumb it down? He said, oh, for sure. Yeah. So anyway, so then we come up with this, where this is what we call our Vesta. So now we've simplified it. My dirty hands, but you've got, so the aluminum aluminum fins here. So on the bottom side there, I just take the heat from the canned heat I got 2 of them, one here and one here, and they heat up these fins, right? Then I take the energy from the 3rd can, and it heats up this part right here, and then it goes in. We capture that energy through a thermoelectric generator,
Yeah.
which then will power the fan to blow across that.
Which to me is just truly ingenious. I mean, talk about self-contained and, you know, like you said, no need to go scrounge around, find batteries, or the batteries have leaked, or all this kind of nonsense that just would be frustrating. It's all just built in. So
yeah, that is what we call our magic heater. But so then we said, well, okay, while we're having heat, well, can we cook indoors? So we just made this a little grate at the bottom. So now you take the heater off. You've still got your canned heat down here. We have a grate on top. So now that's where I put my pans or pot. So I use the canned heat now to boil water, to cook my food, whatever. Safe to use indoor.
So you've got space for 3.
Correct.
But you don't necessarily have to use all 3. If you need maybe just to warm something slowly, you could use 1.
Yeah.
Or, you know, obviously more is faster, but
yeah, so
meet your need and not use more than you really have to. Okay, that is awesome. So what came next?
So then we've always had an idea in the back of our mind, but I didn't have the money because, you know, when we sold InstaFire, then it allowed us now to have access to more funds so that I could use some of these things. So there's a gentleman, Gerald Williams, good friend, and he says, hey, I've got an idea for an oven. And so we've been sitting there tinkering now together. This was our first prototype, very rudimentary, just took an old stove pipe, you know, and stuck it in here, and we go, okay, well, if we heat that up, you know, we use sticks and twigs, so we were going to use it outdoor, and then as we've come to know canned heat, then we said, okay, well, we have this idea for camping, can we incorporate both?
Right.
And now to what we have now. You know, and then it's just a matter of, okay, we can bend some metal here and get it where it almost works. And then I just, like I said, put smarter people around me than I am. And
one of the things that I think is really important to point out here is you didn't just have an idea and it just magically jumped into place. It's this iterative process and involving different people and getting the right players and building a prototype and watch it fail, and we learn from that, right? That's an important part of the process, is we learn when we fail.
Perfect example is right here. So this, we thought, well, in order to radiate the most amount of heat, we'll use an aluminum tube. So I said, here, I gave it to another friend, try it. Well, he wanted to heat it up real fast, so he just shoved this whole chimney full of sticks and twigs. It got so hot, it melted the pipe, and which was a good thing. I mean, we hated him for a while because he ruined our prototype, but you know, it gave us the knowledge that, hey, we got to change some things. And so just things evolve, and you fail, and why didn't that work? And you drive yourself crazy, and anyway.
Part of the process. Yeah. So where did we go next? You know, we've talked about a couple of these. What was the next step?
So we've had probably the stove next. They I generally have 2 or 3 things going at one time, so all in different stages. So then we went to the stove. So here's a kind of a prototype. I had a stove, there's a fan in it, but it had a cord, and I go, well, I don't really want the cord hanging out. It had 3 legs, and I go, well, no, I want 4 legs, 3 on the top. No, I want 4. I wanted a triple wall so, I can pick it up. I wanted also to insulate the batteries. If I put the batteries in here, I want to be able to insulate the heat. So I wanted the heat from the top, from here up.
Right.
And all of this being insulated so I could have the electronics insulated from. So that's kind of how that came about. Being in scouting forever, I tried a lot of the different rocket stoves and all the different stoves, the alcohol burner stoves, and you end up tipping it and they have a mess all over your table or whatever. So that's been a fun little stove. Boil water in under 2 minutes, and
that's awesome.
We're able to control the heat with the speed of the fan. Now I can control the heat. I can go from a boil to a simmer in seconds.
One of the things that's really awesome is the ability to use it indoors or outdoors. Obviously, indoors you're just going to use the canned heat.
Yeah, sticks and twigs. That's the outdoor. Don't bring the smoke and the sticks and the twigs indoors. Use the canned heat for indoors. Anyway, so then we went to, I mentioned a storable fuel. This we can store for 30 years. I can put it, a regular spark won't light it. So we purposely made it that way so that now I can store it right next to a water heater, a furnace, whatever.
Okay.
Even though it's a fuel, it's the only fuel that I'm aware of that you can store as much of it as you want, anywhere you want. It will float and burn on water. It'll take a 30 to 40 mile an hour wind. It's made from volcanic rock. These are all little rocks. We heat the rock to about 3,000 degrees and it pops like popcorn. Wow. Physically, it's the same rock that you'll see in the bottom of like tomato plants. Okay. They use that, they call it perlite. Right. They use that because it holds 10 times its weight in moisture, right? So they want the water around the roots. We want it to be able to hold in our burning agents, and then we seal it all with a paraffin wax. So now you got a very water resistant. So now it'll float and burn on water. I can literally hold it in my hand. While it's burning, you have 1,000 degrees here, and it's insulated. So if I can burn it on my hand, I can burn it on snow, ice, sand,
crazy.
Whatever. Like when we're doing charcoal, I can put it in the bottom of my grill to light my charcoal, but now it protects the bottom of my grill, even though it's twice as hot as a regular wood fire. Now I'm insulated from, it won't tear out the bottom of my grill while I'm starting my charcoal.
That is crazy awesome.
Yeah, so here's a fail.
I love fails. So I do it a lot.
So we had the InstaFire, and I thought, well, I'm gonna make something that's gonna last for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever. So we compressed it, and we compressed it so hard that you really can't light it. So now I needed a way to light my InstaFire. The biggest culprit lighting a fire is wind. I mean, anyone, any idiot can start a fire if it's 70 degrees outside and there's no wind, or no rain.
Right, it's dry. And
everything's dry and perfect. But now, in any other condition, how many times have you woke up camping and you get up in the morning and either there's dew all over or it's been raining all night. Now everything's wet. So now I've got the InstaFire. The issue is now getting the InstaFire lit. So we have a plasma lighter that works in wind and rain, whatever. That works great. But now we needed a match. So now I take a match. we made a little mini flare. One of the culprits so this will go for about 10 to 12 seconds in any condition. You can blow on it as hard as you want. You can stick it in water, whatever, just to demonstrate that, hey, if it's raining, you're going to have a fire. developed this case that's unique. So we have the opening up here. We have the double O-rings.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get any water in it. On the back side, the issue is that your striker, if it gets wet, now you've lost all the use of your matches.
Right.
So now we put on the bottom of here, we now have the striker on the bottom, which now is covered by a waterproof bottom. And we give everybody, 3 of these so that there's plenty of striking power along that. So,
what will you think of next? Well, you've already thought of them. You've got more things in the pipeline, I know.
we do. We've got some really, really cool things. Not at liberty to say right now, but we got to patent them first. We're going through that process, but there's some exciting things that I know you'll love.
Yeah, I know. So far, we're batting 100% here because it's just some really cool stuff and things that our audience and preppers in general need and want. I mean, these are things that solve problems, and that's what we're doing. That's what drives you. That's what drives us. Is how do we solve these problems and help people be able to get through whatever comes their way.
My motto that I've kind of taken on is, an emergency doesn't have to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, we're going through a crisis, we're going through an emergency, but if you have these tools, then we're going to get through it. And we're going to, we'll have light and we'll have warmth and we'll have each other. And so, we're just going to be fine.
I'm glad you mentioned that because you allude to each other, and that's so important to us, community, having people working together and, not just looking out for you or me or, our little world.
Yeah, I got mine.
Yeah, exactly. But actually helping everyone through.
And they're going to have some ideas or some knowledge, maybe in their career or their field of expertise, that's going to help me. And so just because I know about fire doesn't mean you don't know about something else that's going to help me. So,
well, Konel, I want to thank you, inventor extraordinaire, for having some fun with us today and talking through this. This has been truly valuable and insightful and entertaining, all wrapped into one. So this has been so cool. Now for the question of the day. What product would you like to see come to light? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.